As the dust settles down and the fog of war evaporates, it's time to see things in the right perspective. A ceasefire between India and Pakistan has resumed, but the big picture is that India has achieved its objectives, which have been hailed by world community. This was possible due to the India's strategic kinetic response designed to identify legitimate targets. Former Deputy NSA Ambassador Pankaj Saran has been very kind to be with us to help us make sense of the events. Welcome to the conversation, sir. My first question to you would be that do you think that we have achieved our stated objectives?
I think so, yes, we have. Our objective was to attack terrorism and terror infrastructure and to bring justice to the victims. I think we have achieved that because we were very careful in the targeting. We chose only those areas and locations which were the hubs of terror infrastructure and which had been listed by the United Nations Security Council.
Yes.
And they were well known. So we stuck to only those. We hit them. We made a point that you cannot any longer escape accountability or feel that you are immune to response from India. So I think we have achieved our objective of sending a message,
Right.
political message and a military message to terror, patrons of terror and terror groups.
Sir, as the events have unfolded, we have seen that we have done extensive damage to Pakistan Defence Forces, which they must be reeling under. But this has happened when Pakistan continued to provoke India. And but the fact that the original targets, which had been identified as legitimate and also hailed by the world community, they were also noted by the United Nations Security Council, and also their names had surfaced in the investigations in 1990s of all the police agencies and the intelligence agencies who had brought this on record that these people, that the hardliners, the Wahhabis, who were getting sanctuary in these places like Purit-Ke, Bahawalpur and Sialkot, they received trainings, detailed trainings, Daura-e-Aam, Daura-e-Khas, and thereafter they had been a major cause of concern for us, but there was no political will to go after them, not just go after them, penetrate and attack them at their very roots.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Lashkar-e-Toiba,
Yes.
Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen, and of course the Pahalgam responsibility was taken by the Resistance Front,
Right.
which is an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the new name of the Lashkar-e-Toiba.
Yes.
All of them are proscribed by the United Nations Security Council. Not now, but many, many years ago. Individuals, including the killers of Daniel Pearl and Masood Azhar and so many others, they all are named in the Security Council. The locations are known, and this is how we identified these locations. So the Indian targeting was very specific, very precise and very focused. And that is the beauty of this operation, that we did not deviate, and the Pakistani army or its installations or the people of Pakistan were not a target of the Indian action. The Indian action cannot be described as anything else except an anti-terror operation.
Right, but then, sir, it was a very smart move. You see, a lot must have gone behind the designing and planning, because we had a lot other deceptive, movements were happening. Our Navy was mobilized, then we had movements, then we were having security drills. But all of a sudden, do you think it had an immense surprise element for Pakistan, these three major sanctuaries of terrorism which were hit?
I don't think it was a surprise for Pakistan. I think the day Pahalgam happened on the 22nd of April, I'm sure they realized and they calculated that this is not good, what has happened, that there will be a lot of anger in India and that there will be a lot of pressure on India to respond. And apart from that, of course, the fact that there would be elements in Pakistan who would not only know, but who would have been complicit in the Pahalgam terror attack. So from day one, they would have anticipated and they would have calculated that there will be something which India will do, like we did in 2019 and also to some extent in 2016 after Pathankot. So it was not a surprise for them. What they may not have known is the exact nature, but of course I have no doubt they would have known that the terror infrastructures, the hubs, the buildings, the camps, which they know themselves, would be the first target.
So that means that Pakistan must have started their war preparedness from 22nd onwards.
I think so. They would have started to go on alert from 22nd April itself. Because it happened in Kashmir. The 1 week before that, the Army General Asim Munir said in a very fiery speech that Kashmir is the jugular vein of Pakistan, that Hindus and Muslims are two different nations. I mean, from nowhere, he made such a provocative and such a fiery, incendiary speech.
That's true.
And then this happened on 22nd. So 100% they would have raised their defense alertness from 22nd April onwards.
Interesting point, sir. But the fact that the Pakistan DGMO had to call for a ceasefire, it goes on to show that Pakistan must have been under tremendous pressure, world pressure, from various quarters, and that's why, they had to ultimately call for seeking a request for talks on.
No, they were under pressure. Of course, there is no doubt, because the world community, the international community, in this particular instance, was completely united in condemning the act of terrorism. They were also completely united in understanding the pain in India and the anger in India. They also accepted the fact that India has the full right to seek justice for the perpetrators of the terror attack, not just the perpetrators but their masterminds and their planners. And India had the right to self-defense. They also were very clear in their mind there can be no justification for terrorism. You are talking Kashmir or this or that, there is no justification. So the world community was in that sense quite clear in how it viewed the whole situation.
So if you see things in perspective, that the very fact that these targets were identified, the terror hubs, and now we have seen the eventual reaction from world leaders, it was all in our favor, and there was this UNSC meeting happening, and all the statements were in India's favor. Go on to show that the big picture, choosing of targets, the planning. Of course, you need political will, which we saw this time, and we saw in Balakot as well. But the designing of entire, the strategy of how we should go about going behind them is truly remarkable.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Indian government, after 2019 and before that, when this current government was first elected in 2014, it had said in public that their approach to cross-border terrorism is going to be very different from the approach of previous Indian governments. So it was known from day one. They not only said it, but they acted upon it in 2016 and then in 2019. So the fact that this government would adopt a certain kind of an approach to cross-border terrorism is well known and was well known to Pakistan. It's no secret. And what we have seen this time around is just a manifestation of the assurance and the promise which this government gave to the people of India, and which was held out to everyone, and it was known to everyone.
So what is the message which goes across to Pakistan from India? After targeting these terror groups, what is the strong message?
The message which is going is that you cannot get away scot-free by planning, promoting, funding, organizing any terror activities inside India. That period has gone where it was only a one-sided affair. That you would plan and blood would flow in India. And that nothing could happen to you. That message has gone that if something happens here, we will come after you. You will have to pay a price, and either you have a choice, telling the Pakistani government, either you put a stop to terror, you dismantle the terror groups and the terror infrastructure. But if you cannot do it, or if you do not want to do it, we have no option but to do it ourselves. Right. That is the message.
So the message, as I see it, is that, we are not just watching, we'll also go after them.
We are not just watching, we also are not helpless.
Right.
That we will take action. Now, whether this action will solve the problem of terrorism forever is another question.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
The answer to that is obviously it will not.
It will not.
But does that mean that I don't take any action?
Right.
So I have to combine different actions. I have to go to the international community. I have to go to the United Nations. I have to go to FATF. I will do all the other diplomatic things which I need to do.
Right.
Hoping that all of that will put enough pressure on Pakistan to change its behavior. But if that behavior is not changing, or is not changing fast enough, or if there is hesitation, and they still feel that they need to keep and use this weapon against India, then I have the right to protect myself and to say I cannot live with a gun on my head, and that I have to then take action against the terrorists and their masters and patrons. And this is what this whole Operation Sindoor is all about.
So now, how will the world look at India? What's the perception that the world gets about India after the ceasefire has now resumed, and
I think the world will appreciate two things. Number one is the targeted nature of the Indian military action. It was not war; it was a military action, targeted. So they'll appreciate the fact that all the targets were justified. We have a good explanation for why we went. So it was narrow, it was focused. That's the first thing. It was not as if we invaded Pakistan.
Right.
Second, they will appreciate is the fact that we use minimal force to avoid any civil casualties, any collateral damage. We were targeting only the terrorists.
Right.
That is the second, which is important aspect of the whole operation.
Right.
The third thing they will appreciate is the fact that we kept everyone informed. We kept all the major powers and everyone else concerned in the international community informed about what had happened in Pahalgam and how our mind was working and what we were planning to do. They were kept informed.
Right.
Nothing was done behind their back.
Right.
And the last thing I think they will be appreciative about is that at the first opportunity, as soon as we had fulfilled our objective, we decided to call off the operation and say, that's all. We don't need more. We don't want to escalate. And we cease fire.
Right, sir. So during these attacks which were perpetrated by Pakistan through drones and all, in the midst of all this, we saw a very surprising thing which was totally inhuman and, very surprising, that Pakistan had allowed international civil aviation movement during while all this military action was happening. It is truly a very irresponsible behavior, which India could never have thought of doing anything of this nature. But do you think that the Pakistan needs to pay a price for this, and the IATA should take action about violation of civil aviation norms? There are attacks, aerial attacks, which are happening, and you are allowing your civil aviation to operate as normal when all this is happening?
No, this is it is ridiculous. I mean, there are laws and rules of war. You cannot use civilians as shields when you are in the face of such hostilities. So the fact that you allowed commercial flights, some of them even international commercial planes, to fly on those routes from Lahore and use them as a shield to fire at India, whether it was drones or missiles or other aerial assets, is extremely reprehensible. And I agree that they should be called to account. There should be a thorough inquiry as to how they could jeopardize the lives of so many people. And it just shows, I suppose, the lack of any ethical values in their doctrine.
I am sure the world community has taken note of this, to what extent Pakistan can go.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, it is well known. It's documented.
Right. So, sir, now that Indus, water treaty, it's still held in abeyance. What happens to that now?
No, it will continue to be in abeyance. The justifications and the reasons have been given out in public. We all know why it has happened. There are technical reasons. I mean, remember that on the Indus Waters Treaty, India has been telling Pakistan for the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years that we are not happy with the treaty as it is.
Right.
We are not happy with the dispute settlement mechanism.
Right.
That we believe that the treaty needs to be revised because of changes in technology, because of changes in the objective conditions of the rivers and of dam technology since 1960. So you're talking about say 60, 65 years.
Right.
And then that's the first part of it. That there were technical and material and scientific reasons, including global warming, etc., which necessitated a revision or an updating of the treaty. The second we found was that Pakistan was using the treaty and its provisions, particularly dispute settlement, to block or to derail almost every single Indian dam project on even the rivers on which we had our share.
Right.
And also, of course, on the rivers that they had under their share. So every project of India was finding that it was every project of India was coming up under some obstruction or the other legally from Pakistan. So this was clearly trying to misuse the terms of the treaty. And the last point, of course, was that after 2019 and even after, in fact, before that, in 2015-16, the Prime Minister had said, look, water and blood cannot flow together.
Right.
And so you cannot have a situation where you are adhering to only one aspect of international law.
Right.
And you want India to adhere to that also,
right,
which is water. But on other aspects like security, you say that there are no rules in the game and that you can do what you want. So I think the time had come
right,
for India to show that it will not accept a situation where you want to play by the rules in one case, but you have a policy of playing against the rules in another case,
right,
which is relating to security and terrorism. And that whatever I am telling you, or howsoever much I am explaining to you, you are refusing to understand that problem which I face. So I think that is the reason for it is in abeyance. It is not, the treaty is not abrogated. The treaty is not cancelled because there is no provision, but it's kept in abeyance. And we will see how Pakistan behaves in the coming years and decide whether we reactivate the treaty and go back to its full functioning. Remember that 80% of the irrigation area, as per the treaty, has been allocated to Pakistan.
right,
So, in my view, any measure that you can take
right,
to convince Pakistan to move away from terrorism and to come back to a more normal relationship with India is good, as long as it is not non-military.
absolutely, sir.
So if the Indus Waters is one option we have,
Yes, sir.
I'm okay with it.
All right. So now that we put things in perspective, it's also very important to see how we Indians react to this entire situation which has emerged. We have seen that there have been some very highly irresponsible, reaction in the social media, and we saw that the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Vikram Misri, was personally targeted. You've been a career diplomat. So how do you think when they unfold like this, and what should be the right way of looking at things?
No, this is all very unfortunate, and I think and I don't know who these people are and who they represent, but there is no justification for this kind of behavior or trolling, and I'm sure that our government and our system will stand firm behind the Foreign Secretary and dismiss all these and reject all these attempts as not representing the true voice of any Indian, and it's completely condemnable.
Right.
There is no justification.
Absolutely, sir. Ambassador Saran, thank you very much for being with us and helping us understand the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Adir. Thank you very much.